I didn't know that I wanted to run a business until I knew that I wanted to run a business. Like, I'm an accidental entrepreneur. If there was somebody out there who was doing what I wanted to do the way that I wanted to do it, I probably would have just joined their team.
Welcome to The Path to Owning It, a podcast by Provide, powered by Fifth Third. This year, we're going behind the businesses to talk to people who built them, the decisions they made, the risks they took, and what ownership actually looks like. So, join us as we spotlight one small business owner's journey at a time, from the first spark of an idea to the pivots, challenges, and wins that shape their path. Because entrepreneurship isn't a straight line. It's personal, unpredictable, and full of lessons worth sharing. I'm your host, Corey Brown, a marketing leader at Provide with over a decade of experience supporting small business owners. Whether you're just starting out or deep in the game, this is where you'll hear the unfiltered reality of building something that matters. Like what you hear? Follow The Path to Owning It on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you listen. Today, I'm talking with Dusty Weis, the founder and president of Podcamp Media, an award-winning podcast production agency based in Milwaukee. With more than 20 years of experience behind a microphone and in the production studio, Dusty works with a select group of brands across North America, helping them connect with customers and stakeholders through storytelling. Since launching Podcamp Media in 2019, his team has produced more than 400 podcast episodes and earned recognition from outlets like Adweek, Gartner, PR Daily, the Webby Awards, and the Content Marketing Institute. As I mentioned this year, we're doing something a little different. We're going behind the curtain, talking to the people who started something from scratch and getting honest about what ownership really looks like. The real decisions, the hard seasons, the moments that forced a pivot, and what it really feels like to carry ownership. And today's episode is a little special for me. If you've been listening for a while, you've heard the results of Dusty Weis's work every month. Dusty is the producer of our show, the person who helps shape the conversations, tighten the story, make sure each episode really hits the mark. But what you may not know is that he's also my friend and a mentor who's helped me grow in how I think about storytelling, leadership, and showing up with intention. So genuinely, I'm excited to bring him out from behind the scenes and into the guest seat. Because Dusty didn't just help build our show, he built his own business too. And today we're talking about what that journey has actually been like. Dusty, welcome to our show.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you so much for having me. Let it never be said that there isn't anything that I won't do for my clients, including and up to being dragged out from the comfortable anonymity of the producer's booth and put on camera and on microphone. But no, it has been a journey that we have had together making the show, man.
I can't believe it. 67 episodes and we're here and still talking and learning so much and sharing all sorts of amazing tidbits for small business owners. So thank you for getting us to this point. We just can't appreciate it enough.
Well, I will not shy away from the opportunity to make a case study of what you and the team at Provide have been able to do with your podcast when we get to that point. But no, just happy to be a part of the team and happy to have this opportunity to talk a little bit about the adventures that I've had over the years.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're here to do today, right? We're here to talk about you. So before we talk about Podcamp, I'd love for you to just take us back a little bit. What were you doing professionally before you built your business, Podcamp Media?
Oh, golly, Corey, so many things. I have had so many job titles over the years, and I think that if I try to draw a common thread between all of them, it's that somehow a microphone has always been involved and telling stories of one kind or another. But I started working at a radio station when I was 17 years old. I was still in high school, and we called it the Chalet in a Valley, but really it was more of a shack in a cornfield. And I was fortunate enough to get my start working in audio at the ripe old age of 17. But then over the years, I was a news reporter in Madison and Miami, Florida. I was a correspondent for the CBS Radio News Network. And then I pivoted in my career into the strategic communication side of things. I was a public relations supervisor at Milwaukee City Hall, and then the thought leadership manager for one of the biggest trade associations in the world, the Association of Equipment Manufacturers, and actually helped them launch their podcast at the time that I was there.
Very cool. What drew you to radio and storytelling originally? I mean, at the ripe age of 17, like you said, was there something that inside of you that drew you there, or was it just luck of the draw?
If you ask my mom, please don't, but
I will.
She'll tell you that I've always been kind of a storyteller. One of the stories that she likes to tell is when I was like 4 or 5 years old, growing up in my hometown of Monroe, Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, it's a big deal when county fair time rolls around.
Oh, yeah. Marietta, Ohio, too.
1,000%. You get the scene. Well, one year there was a prize-winning steer that broke out of the county fair and went rampaging through our neighborhood. Literally, it just ate the grass in the neighbors' yards until it was corralled by like 6 police officers. It was a big dang deal.
Wow.
And after this happened, 4 or 5-year-old Dusty grabbed a notebook and a pencil and went around knocking on neighbors' doors, asking them, well, did you see the steer? How did you feel? And then apparently, I remember none of this, but sat down at my mother's computer and penned a little story about it. And so it's just always been something that's in my blood. It's something that I'm passionate about. And I guess it was unavoidable that I would wind up doing something like this.
Yeah. And through your career progression, I mean, was building your own business ever a thought, or were you just like, you know what, I'm going to move on to the next best thing that feels right at the time, and here we go?
I didn't know that I wanted to run a business until I knew that I wanted to run a business. I still tell people that I'm an accidental entrepreneur. If there was somebody out there who was doing what I wanted to do the way that I wanted to do it, I probably would have just joined their team. But when I had that entrepreneurial light bulb moment that, podcasting can be used to help brands and organizations tell their story to their stakeholders, to their customers, and it can be done right, and it can be made fun and joyous. There was nobody around hiring people to do that, and so I just ripped the Band-Aid off and went out and did it.
Yeah. And at that time, what information did you actually have when you made that decision? Was this just like, you know what, like you said, Band-Aid, ripping it off, I'm going to do it? Or was there what made you think that this could really be successful?
Well, I was working at the Association of Equipment Manufacturers at the time. I was their thought leadership manager and had pitched to our team the idea of launching a podcast for the brand. And they all got really excited when I told them, I know how to do all this stuff from my days working in radio, so the budget is zero. Let's just do it all in-house. It's going to be great. They got on board with that. We started making this podcast, and within about 5 months, we had 10x'd the very reasonable goals that we had set for the project.
Wow.
Now, this was a podcast targeting our stakeholder audience, our membership audience, right? AEM had a separate podcast that was targeted to their contractor audience or their customer audience, essentially, the customers of their members. That one was being produced by an agency in the Chicagoland area. And when our internal podcast started meeting with all this success, they started talking about, well, what if we could also produce that in-house? And so I started getting included in a lot of these conversations about how this other podcast was being produced on behalf of the brand. And they were not very happy with the agency that was producing this podcast. It was a fairly middling grade quality of the podcast. It didn't really seem like they were putting their backs into it. And then one day I found out what they were getting paid. And I said, that's the going rate for a really mediocre podcast? And I did some math in my head and I said, if I find 2 clients, I could basically replace my income.
Yeah.
If I can find 3 clients, I can replace my income and open a studio. If I can find 5 clients, I can hire an employee. All of a sudden, it just made sense. And it wasn't too many weeks after that I sat down in a meeting with my boss and my boss's boss and said, this has been an absolute opportunity. I have learned so much. I have to resign, and would you please be my first client?
Yeah, how did that conversation go?
It was a little awkward, but but we worked through it, and they did end up being my first clients and providing me the runway that I needed to get Podcamp Media off the ground.
Yeah. So that sounds like the moment when owning your business really stopped feeling like hypothetical and it started to really feel possible, right? When you saw.
Oh, no.
No.
It felt so hypothetical for so long, Corey.
Yeah. Well, talk about like what doubts or fears did you have when you were deciding to go out on your own? Talk about that a little bit.
It was terrifying. And I remember very vividly a conversation that I had with my wife, Cecilia. We had just had our first kid in 2018. And it was our first time getting away after the absolute hurricane of early parenthood.
Mm-hmm.
And we had gone to Cancun and we're sitting at the poolside bar. And I told her about this crazy cockamamie idea that I had for starting a company and had maybe primed her with a few palomas.
That always helps.
And I told her, I think there's a lot of uncertainty in this. We have to make plans that we can only survive on your income for the first year in case I totally fail at this. And there's the threat to my reputation. If I go out and do this thing and stake my reputation on it and fall flat on my face, nobody's ever going to take me seriously again. And I enumerated all of these different concerns that I had. And she, sipping her drink, finally just looks at me and says, I think we're going to be fine money-wise if it doesn't work out. You've clearly put a lot of thought into this, and the upside seems absolutely worth a little bit of risk. So I'm not going to stop you. If this is something that you feel like you want to do, let's do it. And that vote of confidence was huge.
So your wife wasn't stopping you. Was there anything else that almost stopped you?
Oh, absolutely. The turmoil of early parenthood, of having a 1-year-old at home. Our lives were already completely upside down. The last thing that I wanted to do was add one more factor of uncertainty to it. But being a dad for the first time also gets you thinking about long-term things like legacy, like the lessons that you want to impart to your kids. And made me look in the mirror real hard and face this imposter syndrome that I'd been dragging around for years and years and years and say, this is the behavior that I want to model for my kids. I want to show them that we take small risks, we work hard, and it is the recipe for success. And so ultimately that factor that almost made me back away from it, that not wanting to upset the apple cart anymore, is what made me double down and do it.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. You know, up until this point, we've talked about your personal side of the journey, your background, the decision to go out on your own, the risks that came with it. After the break, I want to talk more about what happened next, how you actually built the business and carved out your lane. More with Dusty right after this. Are you fresh out of school with big dreams and ambition to achieve them? Or is your current business bursting at the seams and it's time to expand your legacy? If you tend to challenge the status quo and shoot for the moon, Provide's SBA loan may be for you. Our dedicated team of small business experts will work with you to make your ownership dreams, no matter how big, a reality. To get started, visit getprovide.com to see how our tech-enabled small business financing and banking can work for you. Again, that's getprovide.com for when your aspirations of business ownership exceed traditional limits. I'm Corey Brown, and this is Provide's The Path to Owning It. We're back with Dusty Weis. Before the break, we talked about the decision to start your business. Now I want to dig into what it actually took to build something sustainable, especially in a crowded space like podcasting. You know, Dusty, podcasting, I think you would agree, is a fairly crowded field. When you were starting out, did you ever worry there were already, quote unquote, too many podcasts or too many producers? And how did you think about how you would stand out?
Oh, I've heard all the jokes, Corey. And before we go any further, I will say that one of my favorite TV shows is Only Murders in the Building, in spite of the fact that they play on the absolute worst stereotypes that are out there about podcasting. But I've found that trying to hide from those stereotypes is what's going to cause problems as I'm out there trying to build this business. And so sort of highlighting them and showing how podcasting can be more than a bunch of chuckleheads sitting around a microphone is where I think that we've really been able to differentiate ourselves. The fact of the matter is the podcast field back then, when I started the company and even now, was very, very broad, but very, very shallow. It was like 750,000 flavors of vanilla ice cream. And the way to get successful in podcasting, not just podcasting, in content marketing, in social media, in anything where you're out there as a brand and saying, hey, look at us, pay attention to us, be our customers, is to niche down, be unique, and create a boutique experience for your customers, or in my case, my clients.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny, as I was getting ready for this conversation, I thought back to when I was starting the company, and I just started like jotting down some principles that I wanted to adhere to. And it starts with the fact that stories are the oldest, most intuitive social currency, that everyone has a story to tell, and that helping our clients tell their story effectively is a worthy, rewarding calling. And that we're not just selling podcasts, we're selling confidence. We are helping our clients be rock stars. Not that you needed a lot of help to be a rock star, Corey. You've always kind of had that inside you. But we worked together. We worked on different methods of storytelling, a little bit of coaching.
Oh, yeah.
Getting that confidence up, busting through that imposter syndrome.
Right.
And at the end of the day, at Podcamp, we win by being scrappy and nimble and fun to work with. And nobody likes to fire someone who they enjoy working with. I think hopefully that is what has kept us going for a while here.
Yeah.
But there are other podcast production companies out there, and very often they have a formula that they like to walk their clients through.
Yeah.
And we try to be flexible. We try to be nimble. We try to go to our customers and find out what their needs are and augment them, not try to fit them into a form for what we think our customers should be.
Yeah. And I can say that's absolutely true. I mean, we interviewed, as you know, several different production companies when we were looking to start our own podcast. And that is what stood out, is that you were a real person who we could tell genuinely wanted to help us and help tell our story as a business. So I think you've absolutely hit the principles that you set out for yourself. So you should feel really good about that. Is there anything you tried early on when you first started that just didn't work out the way you expected?
Oh my gosh, so many things.
Yeah.
But probably the first thing that comes to mind and is ridiculous now looking back at it, I started the company in 2019 and was bootstrapping it. So we didn't have this studio that I'm sitting in here now.
Yeah.
I was running the company out of my basement. But in order to facilitate a professional recording environment, I thought that the path forward for me was going to be to take all of this equipment on the road with me and to set up a professional podcast studio in whatever the client had available, a conference room, something like that. We've even done that. One of the first podcast sessions that we recorded, I drove down to Columbus with a trunk full of podcast equipment and we can, but I thought that was going to be how we were doing all of our business. And I remember one of the first pitch meetings I had was at a local private university, and I rolled in with the entire mobile podcast setup and set it up in their conference room for the pitch meeting because I wanted them to know that I was serious. They came in and they looked at me like I was absolutely bonkers. And it was kind of bonkers. I don't think it would have been sustainable to do that all of the time. And not long after that, a little thing called the COVID pandemic came along and made that business model completely impractical.
Yeah.
And so we had to pivot hard to virtual recording, but still finding the techniques, the procedures, and the equipment to make it sound like people from 4 different time zones were sitting in the same room with each other to make that podcast listening experience worthwhile.
Yeah. We've done some podcasts on the road, also at trade shows, right? And as someone who's helped carry that equipment from the hotel to the convention center, I can say that would have been a hard path in the last 8 years of you having your business. So
no, the biceps would be popping a lot more, though.
Yeah, that's right. You've hinted at this a little bit, but can you talk a little more about how you figured out what would work for you and your business versus what was working for others at the time?
It was a lot of trial and error early on. One thing that I feel really good about is I went out of my way to be intentional about networking, about reaching out to other podcast producers from around the country when I was just getting started, going out to podcast industry events, talking to other people who were trying to do things similar to what I was doing and finding out what was working for them, what drove them crazy, and trying to not be that part. But it was really just all about coming in and staying flexible, I think.
Yeah. And you work so closely with us and your other clients on sharing our stories. And it seems like that's really been a passion of yours since the steer getting loose as a child, right?
I hate that I told that story.
I'm never going to not bring that up now. But in that experience, can you talk about what actually makes brand storytelling effective and what is something that brands often get wrong?
The biggest mistake that brands make when they're doing a podcast, when they're doing content marketing, when they are creating anything, is they make it about the brand when it needs to be about the customers, the listeners.
Can you just repeat that? I want to make sure everybody really heard that.
Don't make your content marketing about your brand. Make it about serving your listeners, your customers, the people who you want to come to you, the people who you want to trust you. If you get up and talk for 45 minutes about your products and services, this new product line that you're rolling out, it's called an infomercial, and people hate infomercials. We all have KPIs to hit. I get that. It's important to hit the KPIs. But if you go into it and put the KPIs at the front of the line and make everything fall in behind that, nobody's going to consume your content, whatever it is, your podcast, your video shorts. Nobody wants that. Make it about providing value to your customers. They will come to trust you after repeatedly consuming and interacting with the good stuff that you're putting out there that helps them. And when the time to buy arrives, they will come to you first, and you will not even have to work them through the sales funnel because they will already trust you. They will have been interacting with you for years.
Yeah. So true. I mean, we talk about that all the time. And you mentioned trust. I mean, a lot of your success seems really rooted in these kind of long-term client relationships. How do you build trust and keep those relationships just so strong over time?
Be flexible, be boutique. There's one word that I don't think I've ever said to my clients, and that is no.
Yeah.
Because people get excited and passionate about sharing their story. And the last thing that you want to do as an agency owner is dump cold water on that. I have had people come to me with crazy ideas. Sometimes even you.
I was going to say, have we done that? Let me think. Probably.
But the last thing that you want to do is dump cold water on that and say, no, we can't do that. No, that's outside the scope of work. The more you can make running an agency like running an improv show, the more you can yes and with the ideas that people come up with, the more that you can say, well, that's not what we normally do, but here's a way that we could make that work, the more people are going to trust you to keep coming back to you. And I'll say this, not to toot my own horn too much, but I was creeping on a competitor's website recently, and they boasted that they have worked on more than 250 podcasts and produced 4,000 episodes. And I did some quick back of the envelope math, and I'm like, that's like 16 episodes per client. What are you doing?
Yeah.
I've worked on like 8 podcasts ever, and we've produced like 400 episodes, and we're averaging out to about 50 episodes per client right now. You're at 67. Another one of my clients just rolled over 70. Another one is creeping up over 60.
Yeah.
People keep coming back when you treat them like a person, not an account.
Yeah. That's a great point. What would you say success as a business owner looks like to you?
This is going to sound corny, but
Great.
It looks a lot like friendship.
Yeah.
And I'm going to throw you under the bus now, Corey.
Oh, great.
Since you dragged me out of the producer's booth.
Okay, let's do it.
Success as a business owner is driving to Columbus, Ohio, and setting up a podcast studio in someone's conference room and watching this person who's never hosted a podcast before go through the training that you put for them and come through and absolutely smoke it, absolutely ace 3 interviews in a row. And I could see the anxiety that you had going into it.
Yeah.
And I could see the palpable relief the moment that we pressed record and you just locked in and crushed it. But success to me is after you helped me lug all my equipment back to the parking garage and then out of nowhere impulsively reached out and gave me a hug before my drive back to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That is a top 5 moment for me as a business owner, knowing that you came into it with all kinds of doubts about this new contractor that you were bringing in. And by the end of it, felt so good and trusted me so much that you just wanted to reach out and give me that hug. That was everything.
Oh, well, you really had helped us out so much. And like you said, I was filled with anxiety. I've never done anything like this before. Never thought I would never have considered talking in front of people as a career move prior to that. So yeah, we just can't say enough good things about you. But what I really want to know is now that you're on the other side of starting your business, what do you love most about the work and what surprised you about running your own company the most?
I'll start with what I love because I love the people that I get to work with. That should be obvious.
Yeah.
I love the stories that we get to tell. I love the adventures that we get to have. Making podcasts has taken me to Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., to the infield at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. It has taken me to the back seat of an F-18 fighter jet over the Gulf of Mexico.
I was hoping you're going to mention that one.
It was an adventure. And I love the freedom and independence that comes from getting to dictate where my paycheck comes from. What surprised me, what still surprises me every day is that it still feels like I'm making it up as I go along. And I'm like 7 years into this entrepreneurship journey now.
Yeah.
But that uncertainty is still there. That imposter syndrome is still waiting for me every morning when I get out of bed in the morning and I have to stare it down in the mirror and go out and say, I'm going to make great podcasts and tell great stories again today and not worry about that doubt. But it's crazy to me when you see somebody who runs a business as someone who doesn't run a business, you think, oh man, they've got a plan. They've got it all figured out. They're on top of the world. And when you get 7 years into your business ownership journey and realize that you're still making it up day to day, that is kind of an awakening right there. But it also, it teaches you to have a little bit of faith in yourself.
Yeah. Is that feeling still scary like it was when you first started?
1,000%.
Okay.
My wife makes fun of me because every year in Q4 for the last 6 years, I've at some point sat down across the dinner table from her and looked her square in the eyes and say, babe, I think next year is the year that I finally go out of business. I don't know. The contracts aren't lining up the way that I thought they would. And then somehow by like Q1, Q2, like everything always
it's all fine,
falls
right?
into place.
Yeah.
And so right before Thanksgiving this year, I was starting to get a little bit edgy around the dinner table. And I'm like, God, the contracts. And she's like, stop. I just don't want to hear it. You've done this 6 years in a row now. It's always worked out fine. Skip the step where you get yourself all worked into a lather and go out there and do your work and it'll be fine. But like, we don't need the song and dance this time. So I got to start trusting in the process.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that she called you out on that.
She calls me out on just about everything, Corey. I don't get away. You've met her. I don't get away with much.
What part of owning a business do you think has changed you the most?
The responsibility is weird. When I was a solo practitioner, I guess you could call me, before I started having employees and contractors working on my staff, there was sort of this liberating feeling of, well, if I fail, it's not a big deal. But when other people's livelihoods are tied up in your success or failure, that's a weight that I think changes a person. I think there's no way to constantly feel like you're out there trying to hunt up food for other people too that won't have an effect on you.
Yeah, absolutely. Last question. If you could talk to yourself right before you started the business, or to someone listening right now who's considering it, what would you say?
I think that everyone who's ever thought about starting a business needs to recognize the uncertainty that is in their lives already, because that's the biggest hurdle to starting a business, right? Oh, there's so much uncertainty. Oh, what if I fail? What if I don't make any money? What if I end up unemployed? All of those risks are still with you when you're an employee in somebody else's business. The only difference is that you are insulated psychologically from that risk. Like, any business can go belly up next year.
Sure.
Any employer can fail. And when they fail, as an employee, you'll fail too. You'll end up in the exact same spot that you would end up if you had started a business and failed at that. And I think that too often people who are employees and would like to start a business but don't, because of the uncertainty of it, just aren't recognizing the uncertainty that's already inherent in their situation. There's no reason not to. If you're called to do it, get out there and do it. That's what I would tell myself, and probably save myself an entire year of hand-wringing and uncertainty.
I think that's a great point and a perfect place to end. Dusty, thank you so much for sharing your story, being honest about what ownerships really look like for you. If there's anyone out there listening who has a brand and is considering telling their stories, how can they get in touch with you to help them with that?
Check out our website, podcampmedia.com, or search up the Lead Balloon Podcast. That's a podcast where I tell stories with other marketers, other storytellers, and yes, from the backseat of an F-18 fighter jet.
That's a good one. You should listen to it. Dusty, thank you again so much. We couldn't do this without you, and appreciate you more than you'll ever know.
Thank you, Corey. You and the rest of our clients are the reason that I get to do what I love doing, and so there's nothing I wouldn't do for you, but thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to The Path to Owning It. No two journeys look the same, but everyone is full of real moments, raw lessons, and stories worth sharing. We hope today's episode gave you something to take with you on your own path. If you enjoyed the show, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps more listeners find these stories. Know an entrepreneur whose journey we should feature? Let us know in the comments or reach out on social. The Path to Owning It is brought to you by the team at Provide, powered by Fifth Third, where we back small business owners like you. If you're ready to bet on yourself, head to getprovide.com to explore tools, resources, and financing and banking options crafted to help you build your legacy. This show is produced by Podcamp Media, branded podcast production for businesses. That's podcampmedia.com. Producer Dusty Weis, editor Matt Covarrubias. For Provide, I'm Corey Brown, and to every small business owner out there, your story matters. Keep writing it.
Provide is a division of Fifth Third Bank, National Association. All opinions expressed by the participants are solely their current opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Provide, its affiliates, or Fifth Third Bank. The participants' opinions are based on information they consider reliable, but neither Provide, its affiliates, nor Fifth Third Bank warrant its completeness or accuracy and should not be relied upon as such. This content is for informational purposes and does not constitute the rendering of legal, accounting, tax, or investment advice or other professional services by Provide or any of its affiliates. Please consult with appropriate professionals related to your individual circumstances. All lending is subject to review and approval.